worked. Dr. Fowler, it worked. What a great intro that was. Hey, everybody, it's CPS Punisher Darren Guay here on a Monday night. Happy New Year's to everybody. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Dr. Tanya Fowler, right here, or as aka Fowler to me. The rest of you will address her as Doctor, please. Dr. Fowler, how are you tonight?
Good evening, my dear. I'm well, and I'm very, very pleased to join you. Welcome to our viewers, those near and far, and those who are with us at present, and those who join us later.
Yeah, we always get the later viewers. You didn't get banged up last night, did you?
No, I certainly didn't. I was pleased to have spent a quiet evening at home in quiet repose. How did you spend your
I was
evening?
asleep, actually, believe it or not. I have slept through the entire New Year's Eve. I've actually forgot it was New Year's Eve because we don't do a whole lot of the celebrating of things. I mean, we do the best that we can with it, but you know just as well as I do, it's hard to deal with the holiday time. But you know what the New Year's means? It means that it's over with. So we're done with this crap, this holiday stuff that used to be happy and foremost, and we're moving forward now. That's the way I see this. That's the way I see things. That's the way I see how this is going to be. And we have a lot of exciting things coming our way. Um, what do you want to talk about? It's the first
Mhm.
topic of the year, Dr. Fowler. What do you want to say?
Well, thank you, dear, and so much for asking. I did have a brief list of comments to make. The first one begins with, of course, our usual welcome, especially to the fathers out there, those who are with us now and those who are not even any longer with us. Special prayers and special recognition to the fathers. I'm here for the fathers. That's why I am pleased to be a delegate to the men in the trenches because my heart goes out to all the dads, those who have had the joy to be dads, and those who have not, and those who are in contemplation about becoming fathers, especially those who have experienced CPS and all of the degradations that go along with that. So that's my first
Mm,
comment. Thank
hmm.
you. My second one is that I just wanted to remind everyone that I am a doctor of biomedical anthropology. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a legal counselor, and I do not dispense legal counseling or advisement. What I am pleased to do during the course of our shows is to share personal experience. I had a granddaughter who was kidnapped by CPS locally and who's still really in captivity. And I would be pleased to share those legal strategies, those other strategies that I've tried to get her back. A lot of times they didn't yield the exact desired results, but that doesn't mean that they won't work for someone
Right.
else at a different time, at a different place. I also am a strong proponent of one ruling for law of the law in my state, which I'll just continuously promote because I think that not too many people know about it, and very few people have been able to avail themselves of the provisions of law, and that would be this law, and that 23 5324, and it's a provision of law for parents, family members, and kin of a child to be able to achieve standing to obtain custody of a child during the course of an open dependency matter with CPS. And finally, Darren, if time permits, I would like to comment about a personal goal, aside from, of course, retrieving my granddaughter and saving her from the vagaries of CPS. I would like to really push ways that we as parents can begin to sue CPS and its agents and achieve a level of restorative justice and dismantle the presumption of immunity. I
Mm,
think that it is really anti constitutional for any entity to claim that it has immunity from the law. And I'd
hmm.
like to see that challenged and pushed asunder, especially with the aid of experts. So if we get the experts to come on here and consult with us, I know there are ways to begin to fight back through
Mm-hmm.
lawsuits. And finally, as a delegate, the long term goal that I have is to go out in the world and to do what delegates do and to really enlarge this cause with the politicians and people of note, people of influence, to just completely dismantle the system called child protective services, and not replace
That's
it
a
with
joke.
something, but really dismantle it in its entirety. And then 85% of the children who are now captives will be at home with their families. They will be safe and free. And then we as Americans, as families, and as adults and parents can definitely think of ways to protect and save the children who need protection and safety. Those are my
Mm.
ideas. Back to you,
And
dear.
what a great list of ideas that is, Fowler. Obviously, first and foremost, we are looking to save our children. My daughter, it's your daughter, your granddaughter. I mean, those are the things that we are working on. I did a writ of mandamus over the past weekend, or that last Friday. I finally got the Gajonis to do that, and I'm ready to. I made the leap, and now we'll let the faith go and see what happens. I'm finding through more and more of what I see and what I'm learning is that these lawyers aren't out here to help us. They are not out here to make sure that we keep our kids. They're not here to defend our freedoms of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. They're not here to protect the Constitution against this government corruption, meaning the courts and the way that they rule. Believe it or not, the first loyalty to a lawyer is the courts itself. I forget which one of those statutes it was that Malibu Dallas had read off the other day. We put it on here, but it said, admittedly, that the lawyer's obligation, if you're a bar attorney, the lawyer's obligation is to the courts before their client. And that's a pretty bold statement. And it really opens up a lot to think about for everybody, that when you get your court-appointed public pretender, and you're sitting there and you're like, why is this guy or girl doing this for me? Why are they not trying to do this or that? And it's because they don't want to. They're getting a paycheck with these judges and these caseworkers and all of that from this Title IV funds, which, by the way, aren't supposed to be used for these things. They're getting a part of that money to make sure that they put your child into the hands of DHS, CPS, CPPS, whatever you want to call the alphabet name that they are. They're there to make sure that you don't get the chance to appeal that decision. And I'm going to tell you why. I learned, obviously there's no textbook that tells us that this is what they're doing, but I want to say this. So what I've learned is when you're going to court in the district court, they consider that a rogue court, a kangaroo court. They don't follow the Constitution. They don't follow the Bill of Rights. You could have case law up the wazoo. It doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want to do. Therefore, the smartest thing to do is to lose in the district level or figure out a way to get out of it and move yourself up into a federal type court or an appeals court or something like that, where they actually use law to rule by.
Exactly.
So what the lawyers would do, right, is they would just make sure that they hold your hand. They're like, oh, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to file any appeals. We're not going to appeal any of the decisions of the department. They'd blow smoke up your ass trying to tell you that it's because of this or that or this. But in all reality is they want a smooth transition so that when you go to the appeals court, again, they've got you there, because I don't know if anybody knows about this, but in an appeals court, you only get the opportunity to argue what you had in a trial. So you can't go to an appeals court, let's say, and start new information and new findings. That doesn't work. You can only go with and go by what was founded in your hearing or your final hearing of the TPR or whatever is what you'd be appealing in this case. So, and all that being said, watch out for these public pretenders. They're not your friends. They're not your lawyers. They're not anything that you need to be leaning into and depending on. You need to actually be doing the opposite. You need to be following what Dr. Fowler and I are talking about. Obviously, educate yourselves. Don't take verbatim and don't take for word what we're saying, because again, we are not lawyers. We're just giving you guys sound advice that has worked for us, or we've heard through other people. And as you'll hear from our guests down the line too, do the research yourself. It will do you so much more vigilance if you do your own research, and then you go to your attorney and you remind that attorney, number one, that they work for you. They're a paid attorney that is there for you. So you tell them that you want them to use this. Don't let them use the BS that says you're misinterpreting the law. Don't let them tell you that that's wrong, because listen, they wrote these things very simple so that we could, because back in the days of the Revolutionary War and the time of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all that stuff, not very many could read. So they put it in the most simplistic form. That way those could read or could not read could at least understand the majority of the words, put them together in a sentence and make sense of it. So don't let these lawyers tell you that, oh, you're misinterpreting, because the law reads as the law reads, right? So don't allow that. So that's my little spiel on this whole. I know that we didn't discuss that, but that was, I just was looking through here at some of these files and I said, holy smokes, we really should talk about this, because people don't. Even the paid lawyers that you get are not there to help you. They're all of their obligations, if they're for the bar, are to the court. Dr. Fowler, how many lawyers have you had that you sit, you shake your head, you go, wow, why are these people not helping me? Why are they working against me?
Thanks for asking, Darren. Because I've had two grandchildren, well, all three grandchildren have been involved with CPS, this has to do with their mother, my daughter. I'm a maternal grandmother. And I'd say over the past 3 years, there have been two grandchildren, and I have retained or otherwise hired at least 12 attorneys. And basically, I have had difficulty even getting any of them to file a motion.
Have you had situations where you're set and you've told your attorney, listen, do this thing for me, and they don't do it? They don't want you to?
Oh, yes. Each and every attorney that I've had, for the most part.
Quiet down in the background. We're live here, pal. That's Dr. Fowler's makeup person. He's new.
Sorry.
I figured I'd yell at him for you, Dr. Fowler.
We're broadcasting from home. I will soon have a studio. Nonetheless, here's the part of the problem with this is when you're looking for attorneys to represent you in a CPS matter, at least my personal experience has been overwhelmingly, I've spent hundreds, literally, of man hours researching attorneys. I've followed leads. I've followed referrals. I've purchased memberships to attorney referral services. I've looked independently, high and low. What happens often is that attorneys will advertise that they are family law attorneys. Well, CPS is not really family law. It's not any kind of a law that you're accustomed to at all. So when you call these attorneys and you say, do you represent CPS matters? They might say yes, or in our state, they're called dependency matters. They might say yes, but there are very few attorneys who really specialize in CPS matters, which are absolutely distinctive from civil proceedings or criminal proceedings. In a sense, if you're a parent and you've been involved with CPS and you want to get your children back, or especially if you're a grandparent, such as myself, there are times, I hope I'm not exaggerating, when you almost wish that you had a criminal proceeding, because you know that there is a proceeding. You know that you know what's going to happen. You know that you have a right to representation. You have a right to face your accusers. You know that there's going to be a procedure or proceedings, and you may not even be able to access all of your rights to those procedures, but at least you know that they are there. With dependency court, essentially, there are no proceedings that you can know or discover, and you have no rights. You have no right to face your accuser. You have no right to cross examine, essentially. You have no rights of access to records. You have no rights to denial accusations. You have no rights to even be presented with a coherent plan of action to retrieve your children. So, because the CPS situations affect a lot of families who are not high money families, I suppose you would say. And I'm just not just saying it's just affects poor people or families who are middle class and just sort of barely meeting the margin. However, this is not a big money area for people in the legal profession. Let's face it, it's not like accidents and injuries or something like that, or even
Right.
wills and estates. Therefore, there are very few practitioners who really specialize in dependency matters, which makes it really hard for a person in search of attorney representation, because who are these specialists? And what few that you can find aren't necessarily going to be as diligent as attorneys in other areas of practice, because there's not a lot of peer review. There's not a lot of cross comparison to see what this one is doing and balance it against the other one. So they're just without a lot of oversight, then you kind of get what you get.
Right.
So I've had to learn myself the chapters of law. I've had to teach myself motion writing, and it isn't a compliment when I've had my lawyers tell me, quote, "You do a much better job at motion writing than I do."
Right.
I don't find that complimentary. I find that really insulting to the speaker, because why should I have to do a better job at motion writing than you do?
Right.
That isn't nice. And you're still on retainer. So, thank you, Darren, and thank you, audience, for listening to that. So, again, so my experience overall with attorneys has been very much like other parents who've shelled out a lot of money to attorneys and have gotten really very negligible return. And a lot of us still don't have our children back.
Right.
Because there still doesn't seem to be a patented process that you can follow, that you can replicate, to go in and help families to get their children back, unlike the civil court or civil proceedings. If you look at civil procedure, the rules of civil procedure in every state are very much the same. Someone files a lawsuit, you file an answer.
Right.
Then you request documents or something of that nature. Then you have the interrogatories. Then you have another motion. Then you might file a motion for summary judgment. But there's a menu. You just go down the menu, and once you get on course, you know what you're doing. Criminal proceeding the same way. Can anyone in the world tell me what the proceeding is in dependency court except to violate every chapter of law?
Right. It was totally funny because it's true. And that the thing is they don't allow you to look at, there's no Constitution, Bill of Rights, there's none of that in these courtrooms with these child. They perjure themselves so much on the court stand that it's disgusting. The judges are so entangled in this stuff, it's just asinine that they are even allowed to do that. The attorney generals have their hands in this from bottom to top, but yet there's no what do we need an attorney general for prosecuting these for when there's no crimes? You have government overseer groups that are saying that things are neglect that are not neglect, or are not neglect that are neglect. You have all of this just dismay, and that's why I think, there's no set standard, and they're not going to give us a set standard because they're not going to get the kids that they want to get if they gave us a set standard. Now, when should it be 3 dishes in your house make you a hoarder? Or when should it be that imminent danger is be used in a sentence to grab a court docket to go and steal it, to kidnap a kid? What is that? We don't have any of those things. So that's where, leading into this, that's where I think that the abolishment of Child Protective Services needs to be done, because this was definitely a carriage before the horse. We gave them a ton of money to do something with, and they had no guidelines, no anything to go by. And they're just kind of a rogue group, just making it up as they want to go. You know, they're like the wild, wild west out there, snatching children. I mean, I had the interview with Malibu Dallas the other day. The United States leads the world in child trafficking, children that are involved in child trafficking. Now, tell me how you do that if your government isn't in on it, right? Like, how can you do that? How is third world countries where they are in tribes, millions, or not millions, but thousands of miles from other people, where you could drop a plane in, put a cage, and probably suck the kids into it, take them away, and go sell them for a profit somewhere else? How are these places not leading the United States, where we have news media, where we have people watching, where we have judges, where we supposedly have laws and order and all of this stuff, but yet 84% of the kids that are child trafficked come through CPS? So the only thing that we can do is destroy this system, because you can't fix a broken system. But you can fix a broken system, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and these are still new dogs. So we need to destroy this thing, eliminate all funding. I think everybody in the United States will be okay with their own kids for a staunch period of time to be sure that we can get something else up and running. Obviously, you would want some sort of a system, but why couldn't you use the Red Cross, right? Why couldn't you use the Red Cross in time of need to go back and they can come and give family stipend checks and things like that they do for families in fires and stuff? But I know that was one of your things on your list of this 2024 year. And that's why I have abolishcps.com. That's why I do all I've been doing, because I don't believe that this movement is going to be okay with just a restructuring. This thing needs to be toppled over, started by brick from the bottom of the ground, by loving, caring people that don't care about money, that care about kids, that involve all assets of the family, dad, mom, sister, brother. They love every one of them. Their ideas are the family bond and the family unit, the family togetherness, how it works, like it works like we talk about often in tribal lands and all these other places where the family is this core structure for everything. That's the way that the system needs to be laid out. And the funding, let's not even worry about funding, because I bet that we could get enough donations and enough of things along that matters and grants and things like that to start over, instead of indulging ourselves into the creme de la creme of money, because that's what happened. What's your thoughts, Fowler?
Thank you. I have a lot of thoughts. One of my first thoughts is, imagine a world, which is our world, where we can sue law enforcement. They're not immune. At some level or another, we can sue judges, certain judges. They're not immune. We can certainly sue medical practitioners. We can sue. We're very litigious in our society. But on the occasion in which my granddaughter was medically kidnapped from my arms at a children's hospital in the middle of her medical exam by a CPS agent alleging that I was improperly feeding her, October the 7th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m., I went immediately to local law enforcement to try to issue a complaint. Couldn't do it. Couldn't complain against her. I called the state police. Couldn't complain against her. Of course, I called the commissioner's office. What good is that? That's like screaming that the crime's been committed, that, screaming at the wolf, that sorry, I've got some family members here who are also really involved. My brother's here, and he is also very deeply affected by the kidnapping of my grandbaby.
Got that baby. Fuck the little cop.
Okay.
Tony, man, you know it, baby. There's nothing wrong with being emotional about it. That's it right there. That's right there. That's a man that wasn't able to be there to protect his friend. And if he was there, he would have been able to protect you. But
yes, he would have. He would have. He really would have.
I would have did that.
So, I went everywhere that I could to issue a complaint.
And how did
Nothing worked.
How is it that you can't get them to say kidnapping? How you can't get them to say, how is it not kidnapping when you have custody of your little child? You have no CPS investigation. You have nothing of the sorts going into that. You just got given custody of the sole custody, I believe, right? All of that. And all of a sudden they can come and take that baby from you and nobody says boo, nobody looks out, no one does anything. But if there was a militia of men now that stood tall and strong and
Yeah.
that were waiting
Yes.
for women or people to call that CPS is coming for their kids, to go there and make
Yes.
sure that things are lawfully handled, to make sure
Yes.
that everything, and we mean everything, because these people have gotten away with too long the ideals that they can just go get a rubber stamp from a judge. I'm talking about a wet ink stamp from a judge with a signed affidavit of truth sworn under the penalty of perjury with a jail sentence tied to it, the whole nine. And we need to hold them accountable for what they're doing when they're taking our kids. They're using this tool of rubber stamp and these things of imminent danger too loosely, too broadly, too flamboyantly, and it needs to be stopped. This all needs to be stopped. And without the support of so many that are out here watching us now, that have joined us in the past, that will in the future. You know, Mary had a great idea the other day when I was talking to Malibu Dallas. He was talking about having a preemptive education class, you know, saying like, look, we need to get preemptive education out there. People don't believe that they're out of the reaches of CPS, but in fact, you are not out of the reaches of CPS. They will go and get anybody that has a beautiful little child, right? So if that's true, then how do we educate those who think that they're not going to be in the reach of them? Well, that's a tough question because no one wants to pick up a book that they don't have to read. However, Mary had mentioned the other day, my wife, she said, what if you did when people were in like breast classes and things like that, you know, they go to their prenatal classes, that in those prenatal classes, there's just a little bit of information that was given to who CPS was, your rights as a human being with CPS to you and your baby. Like, you don't have to open the door. You don't have to do those things. You don't have to do a damn thing that they tell you to do. But if you knew that beforehand, it would have done so much more for you, because after the fact doesn't do anything. Once they have their grips on your kid, it's over. Now, I'm not saying it's over like it's all over, but now the waiting game begins. Like you said last week, 72 hours, the 3 months, the 6 months. There's no more I get my kid back now. You know, now you're entrenched. You know, and then the problem with this is now this is when they start to break the family down. They take the child, they remove the child, then they tell you that your husband is violent. They tell you that he's abuser. They tell you that if you don't, if you get him out of the home, that your kid will come home, it'll be safe. They tell you all of these things, but meanwhile, you and your husband have never even argued at each other. And so many people want to believe these caseworkers, and they're defundalizing, I guess would be the word. I don't know if that's really a word, but they're making the man's place and his placement in the home obsolete right from the gates. They go in there, he's abusive, we need to get him out of there. Oh, he's drinking, get him out of there. He's on drugs, get him out of there. Everybody that knows anything about recovery knows the first thing that you do is you build a strong support network around them. You don't remove them. So this again is another action that CPS is going to take up, that's going to show you that family is not their first priority here, and nor is the kid. It's that paycheck. Fowler, we're at 30 minutes. Let's take a 2-minute break real quick. We can gather up some more people. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sure.
All
Agreed.
right. We'll be right back.
Okay.
If I can find the thing. It was supposed to be fast. And it's not. Here we go. Is that it? That's on.
So we're not on air right now?
Did he cut it off?
I don't know. We
I
were
don't
live.
think so. It don't sound like it. Is it off the air?
All right, everybody, welcome back to that's my buddy Laird here calling up. Laird, not now, buddy. We're live. Maybe Laird wants to come in as a guest. This is Darren Guay, CPS Punisher. Laird, if you want to get in on the guest, man, I'll send you a link right now. You can come in and chat with us for a minute. And I am here with the lovely Dr. Fowler. She is right here. Dr. Fowler, how are we this evening? Sorry about that abrupt break. I saw my cat was about ready to jump up on the keyboard, and I knew that to save disaster, I needed to do that. Sorry about that abrupt break. Apologize, but it was well needed. Dr. Fowler, we were just talking about the removal of the father from the family, what CPS does to the family unit when they remove the father. Do you want to explain a little bit from your experiences as being a doctor of anthropology and your experiences of being a mom and a grandma and all of these things, the role that a man plays in a family unit and what CPS is doing by stripping them away?
Get that off the bed.
Oh, you cat too, yeah.
Sorry. Yes,
You
of
cat
course.
too.
Sorry. I start right when I get to. I'm sorry. Yes, I certainly can, Darren. When I think about CPS, I think about the origins of child welfare, the child welfare system, formal system in our country. And in my observation, it grew out of a push for child welfare or child reform in Great Britain during the industrial era. The Brits finally became aware that it wasn't really nice to harness children to industrial labor, to abuse children, and to force children to go into the workhouses and the poorhouses along with their parents. So Charles Dickens, the writer that many of you know about, really brought forth a lot of stories and works that really heighten society's awareness of the plight of children and the need for relief for families. Hence, we got something that was called child welfare in the United States. On the surface, it sounds great. It's child welfare. It's a system that's going to assist children and families, when in fact, child welfare was developed along with the popularization of American education, not really as a means to give children and families relief, but more as a means to infiltrate families and to Americanize, especially Eastern European immigrant families, which was in part what the education system was designed to do. To teach Eastern European immigrants, which would be your Italians, your Poles, and so on, the American standards of hygiene, the American standards of civil behavior, how to behave in public, how to pay your taxes, how to go to work on time, how to comply with the law, and especially, Darren, how to regulate the size and the formation of your families. So that we move forward even into the 1930s and the 1940s in the advent of something called aid to dependent children, which was county assistance or, welfare benefits. That's what it was back then. Maybe just a little bit of cash or something. And we think we know how that affected poor families. A lot of them were Black, but most of them were just simply poor. Families who had, especially men who were underpaid or out of work altogether. So the Bureau would come into the home, inspect the home, and determine that no benefits would be given if there was a man present. So mothers and wives would hide fathers and husbands or get rid of them altogether so that they could receive the benefits. Some people say that wives and mothers then began to marry the state. I'm not too sure about that. And I'm not entirely sure that those benefits themselves mitigated against the family. But I know that when you have a social worker coming in to inspect the home to make sure that there is no man present, that is the destruction of the family. Feeding forward now to the expansion of the funding base, the billions or trillions that go into organized child trafficking in America, meaning trafficking children from other borders into our country, trafficking children through our country, and and then outsourcing them in a massive trafficking scheme for what? For their biomaterial, their organs, and for the little bodies to be harvested in ways that we
Yeah.
shall not
Right.
speak of
Correct.
here. So this system with the dollar incentive now means that all of the other echelons of society are now being affected, and you alluded to that earlier. So now we don't just have poor families that are being decimated, we have middle class families and even upper tier families. And the way a lot of their kidnappings are done is at the hospital, because what happens when you give birth? Typically you go where? To the hospital. Perfect opportunity to snatch a
Yep.
baby. And what's done often is that there will be some allegation that the mother did something that was medically injurious to the baby. You're giving birth, very vulnerable. And here comes the social worker.
Yep.
Here comes allegations. So part of the experience of having your children snatched is the parents are criminalized, but not in the criminal justice system where you can actually defend
Right. This
yourself.
isn't like the
Only within the dependency court system. Yes. And I can use two families, if you
yeah.
wouldn't mind, as an example that I know of personally. I have a friend who is in the Christian Lawyers Network. They had a toddler. Well, I don't know of any children who have never fallen out of the bed. That's a very unique child, unless unless your bed is literally on the floor on a
Right.
pallet. Children fall out of the bed as a part of the growing experience. The baby fell out of the bed, not the baby, but your
Right.
toddler, okay? Fell out of the bed and probably had a little bump or a bruise. The parents or new parents, they take the child to the hospital on the Main Line, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, and it's considered a very exclusive area. These are lawyers, they're very well to do, and suddenly they find themselves literally sequestered in the examining room at the hospital. They cannot leave because CPS was called in and allegations were made that they did something to injure their
Yep.
baby. Now, fortunately, they're lawyers, they're very savvy, and they were able to get themselves out of that situation. But even they are, and then later they discovered that there was a doctor involved. I won't mention that individual's name, and he was harvesting
Yep.
children. He was getting these children through the mechanism just like theirs, handing them over to CPS and making what? Major
Of course.
bonuses. This conspiracy, my dear watchers and my dear viewers out there, is not simply a theory. There's another lawyer here that I've spoken to several times. I'd like to maybe get him on the show. I don't know if it's okay for us to mention his name. Maybe it would be a form of advertising for him, but I'll refrain from mentioning his name until we can find out if we have permission and have him on the show. And according to the little blurb that you read about him, he had some friends who were parents. They had a baby. The baby had seizure disorder or something of that nature. The CPS was called in. The parents were accused of shaking baby. He's a lawyer. If anyone wants to look him up, he's a lawyer who has a little tagline called "Shaking Baby Syndrome." He went to work to defend these parents. It was very difficult. He had to do a lot of research. It took a long time, but he was able, of course, to win for the parents. We would love to have him on the
Absolutely.
show, but look at what happened to people who are very well to do, who probably very clearly did not mistreat their child. So imagine the vulnerability of the rest of us, military personnel.
That's sickening. That
I
is sickening
understand.
that they're taking these kids away while these families are being out and being deployed, fighting for those freedoms, that they're coming and stealing the freaking kids. It's disgusting.
Yes. What Darren is talking about, for those of you who do not know, is that we've heard a lot of stories about military personnel when mom and dad are deployed. The children are left behind with family caregivers. Somehow that manages to come to the attention of CPS. The children are put into CPS, the CPS system. And when the parents come back from defending their country, they don't have a family anymore.
That's disgusting.
And they have the same difficulty retrieving their children as anyone else, because from what I understand from your figures and others, there's only about 13% of the families who have their children taken who are able to get their
Right.
children back. 13%. And if 85% of the cases, according to our figures, a lot of sources, if 85% of the cases are unfounded, that means only 15% of the children who are in need are serviced, or conversely, it means 85% of the children who are in need are
Right.
not serviced.
It's just the numbers. I mean, the proof is in the numbers, and those numbers are probably very short from where they're supposed to be. I'm sure that they hide a lot of those numbers. I mean, people call us and they'll say, "Oh, where are you getting these numbers from? How are you guys coming up with these the statistics?" And all you have to do is go to the dhhs.gov site and look, and you will get these numbers. And then it's just a simple mathematics problem, not that new math that they're teaching in school, where 7 plus 3 is 11, minus 1, carry the 2, plus 6, exclamation point, AB, which makes no sense, but somehow they get the answer. It's not that. This is just using basic math. Like you just said, there's 3.2 million calls last year that they took in. 3.2 million, 85% of those calls, because they do. Malibu Dallas did point this out to me the other day too. The only thing, Fowler, that you can hold, wait, let me figure out how to phrase this right. What is the only thing that a CPS worker is to be sure of that he or she has to do, that they cannot be held accountable for this one thing, and this one thing is something that they have to do no matter what? Do you know what that is?
I sure do. I think I
Okay.
do. No matter what, when you're, at least I'm thinking I do, here in Pennsylvania, no matter what, when your child is first taken into custody of CPS, within 24 hours or so, a hearing is held. It's called a Pennsylvania 42. This would be Chapter 42, Section 6330, 6330. And it gives you the instructions on
Yeah.
what to do. A hearing is held. The stakeholders are there. The GAL is there. The attorney for CPS is there. A judge is there. And other stakeholders are there. The family members are not there. And that they, on the surface, the court hearing is to issue an order. It's called a shelter order. The shelter order directs where the child is placed. It also gives, it's a boilerplate order. It also directs whether or not there are to be family visits with the parents, and it also cites whether the child is being taken into custody for neglect or abuse. It specifies which one of those. And that is the only lawful proceeding that I have ever seen that happens on time and in full and in keeping with the law. That's it.
That is it.
Because that begins the money.
There is that. That is it. That is the beginning of the money. You'll be guaranteed, because by law, you have to have that hearing within 72 hours. The one thing that they do flub onto is also, when they take your child, you're supposed to be able to have contact with that child within 24 hours of them removing them from the home. That's just sick anyway. Those people are so sick and twisted. It boils my freaking blood every time we talk about this. The fact that they can go and kidnap a kid and keep that kid from you for an hour, for a day, without telling them what's going on. This is making me angry right now. Ooh, I haven't been hot and fire like this in a while. I can't believe that they're allowed to just legitimately steal. They're not allowed to. Listen, we are allowing them to do this. Let's stop with this crap. If we're going to start a new year, we need to start a new way. And we are the ones that are allowing this to happen. This is a voluntary service. We don't have to abide by what they say or what they do. If the police come with them onto your yard and they don't have a warrant and they don't have an order of removal and they don't have it properly and they don't have anything of it right, keep your calm. Look right at the police officer and say, "Officer, will you please remove these people from my property? They're trying to kidnap my kid." And if they sit there and argue and bicker and fight, you say again, "Officer, will you please remove these people from my property? And now I'm scared. Can you please no trespass them from my property?" And you're allowed to do that. And that's what everybody needs to start doing. They need to be hit in the face from the start, because again, once they get your kid, it's too late. Your kid's not coming home. Once they take your child, your kid is not coming home. And you'd be much better off fighting it that way, understanding it that way, thinking of it that way, than you're going to be trying to sit there and think that the American justice system is going to come out with a cape on and scold these people out in the public eye and rock them and, do all of these things. They're not coming. There's nobody coming for your child but you. They're taking your child. You have no choice.
The possibilities of retrieving your child,
Yep.
sorry to talk over you, are very, very, very slender. When that court order is issued and a check is written, money is designated, and it's a whole lot of money depending on the age category. Right now, according to our sources, one of the most popular ages are adolescents. Why? Because they're perfect for the sex trade.
Yep.
They're also perfect for the drug addiction trade because they get these adolescents and they drive them to the point of emotional and mental despair from the separation from their families. Then they get them tricked out on these psychotropic drugs for depression and so on. So many of them resort to self-harming. So many of them are exposed to predators. Many of them are suicidal. Many of them are outsourced in the adoption mill because, from we understand, some of the social workers get a $15,000 to $40,000 bonus for every child they kidnap, and they put in the adoption mill. And by the adoption mill, I mean is that they're agents. Conspiracy is not a theory. Ready, willing, and able to take these children for adoption because there's a dollar incentive for them. You get a nice little payout depending on where you are for adoptive children that were foster children. And so it goes. So retrieving your children, also what happens to parents is typically they're given a family plan. What is a family plan? Nobody really knows. In theory, a family plan is your plan of recovery. So if you did not have sufficient housing, you must obtain housing. If you didn't have adequate employment, you must obtain that. If you had drug or alcohol problems or mental health problems, you're supposed to repair all of these problems, but you're never really given a coherent plan. In other words, a template with a true schematic on it so that you can follow it and check it off. You're given these imaginary benchmarks, and every time you think you've met one, you never really have. So what's going to happen to you, I guarantee you, as parents, because this is a part of the package, is that you will now be ordered for, let's say, I'm being a little cheeky, drug and alcohol testing or screening. Well, now you have to take off work to do that,
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
you? You're going to also be ordered to get these therapy or parenting classes, even though you might even be a grandparent. But now you have to do what? Oh, you have to take off work to do that. Or you have to take off time from your own medical appointments. Or you have to take off time from the service that you have to render to your other family members. But you must make these appointments. Are you with
Mhm.
me? Then you have to go, where is that place that we all love? Family court. Because you have to go for these conferences and these hearings, because the moment you don't show up, it demonstrates disinterest and you have your children taken away from you. So the time that you spend trying to meet the benchmarks is going to deprive you of the essential time that you spent managing your life, which means now your employment threatened, housing threatened, your means of transportation threatened, and then also if there's been a medical kidnapping, you're automatically going to be alleged to have done something not just medically unsound, but potentially criminal. So you're going to also possibly incur criminal charges that basically don't exist anywhere outside of dependency court. I can attest to
Mhm.
that.
Or any. Right.
And then if you are a married couple, in the case, in the case of men and women who are married or couples who are married, then almost universally, you are told that, well, the problem is your relationship. One of you has to leave the other in order to get your child back.
Mm-hmm. It's sick. It is sick.
It's not going to work to get your child back, but you don't know any better. How could you? And you can't possibly balk against this because you want to
Right. Who's
retrieve
going
your
to blame you
child.
for that? Who's not? Because I know at firsthand, that was quite a question. Like, oh, if you would have just listened to what the CPS worker said, if you would have just listened to what the CPS. Now we looked at it like this. My wife and I, we're still together, and we're one of the few. What I was just looking up was what the actual divorce rate is for people that go through this together. Not even divorce, but splitting up or whatever, because it's a very tough thing. And when you get badgered and you get thrown under the bus, and when your spouse is forced to believe that if she would have commanded, if she would have formed to the what they had said was going to be, that your child would be home. It's a lie, people. It's all a game, a trickery that they put in your head. They want you to think that way because they want you to sit there and fight. They want you to dismantle yourselves, become weaker and weaker. So they move the man structure gets taken out of the family. Now they can hook their sinkers into you, and then they can belittle you as a single mom and give you just enough money to float by. So you never will be anything better for yourself without a kid. Maybe you can become a drug addict. Maybe you'll go to jail, whatever you do, but you'll get your little Section 8 stipend thing. They want to keep you into that mindset. They want to keep you down so that you can't become something better for yourself. They're not thinking about the best interest of you or your child or your family. They're called the Division of Family Services for a reason. Just think of that. This is the thing. They don't want the dad there because when you remove the dad, it eliminates the actual structure of the family. Now you have chaos amongst the ranks. Look to the wild to see the truth, people. If a male wolf falls out, if the
My
alpha
dear,
wolf falls out of the pack, you know what I'm saying? It's disarray. It's all
we're left.
disarray. Right.
We're left. That's why we have the men's movement.
Yeah.
Pardon me for talking over you, my dear. I did, everyone, I'm looking at this on my phone, so it's a little hard to see. But I see a comment from Karen Cook. Hi, Karen. Thank you for joining us. Your comment was to invite federal attorney Tawaha, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Downing to the show. I'd love to hear more about her, or him or her. Do we know about Attorney Downing?
I know nothing, Karen. If you want to comment or if you can get us in touch, you can, Karen, I think you have my email address, but you can also, if you want to get a hold of me or Dr. Fowler, you can email us at info@abolishcps.com. Eventually we'll get everything more structured a little bit better, so it'll be your own thing, but you haven't got to that yet. But you can see right here on the ticker, it says email us at info@abolishcps.com. Any questions or comments? Fowler actually had quite the fan club last week, so hopefully we can keep that running. Also, look this week to have the website up and running. That will be CPS News Today. That will be the website, so you guys will be able to check that out this week. I'm really putting it out there. I'm putting myself under an enormous pressure here, so now I will have to get it done. So Dr. Fowler won't have the greatest days because I'm going to be irritable and cranky because now I've got to produce this thing. And also, we have abolishcps.com that's up right now and currently running. But we're working on getting that updated as well. That was mine from a couple of years ago. It has a whole bunch of good stuff on it also. But those are the ways, like I said, get a hold of us at info@abolishcps.com. If you want to get a hold of us to be on our shows, if you're a lawyer, a person of any sort of institution that's involved, whether you're a caseworker, you want to whistle blow, you're a caseworker, you want to blow our whistle for a little while, well, I would more than welcome you to come on here and let's try to see who's good and who's not. I will battle you out just fine, and I will be at a very respectable level in doing so. So please don't think that you're going to come in here and we're going to just smash you because you're a caseworker. We all should really work together and make sure that we work together so that we can come up to the common goal, and that's to revive the family and keep the family at a at safe in the home, reunified, because that's what the Title IV funding was for to begin with. So I don't understand how they're getting rid of, how they're getting with all of this right now and getting this money. It should be fraud, but that's another question to be had. Dr. Fowler, we've had so much fun. We're at the last couple minutes here, and I know you always end this show for us. So why don't you go ahead and give your last word, and however you want to end it, this floor is yours, dear.
My dear, again, thank you, Karen. Thank you, our other viewers. And I think there were a couple of other people that may have commented. So maybe we can retrace our steps and address those comments later. And thank you especially to all of the men and all of the fathers out there, to the men in churches. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his and her face to shine upon you, lift up his and her countenance upon you, and be gracious upon you, unto you, and give you everlasting peace for this new year and forevermore. And God, please continue to surround our children with your angels of mercy and protection, and let those who are their handlers and caregivers to give them all of the love, all of the protection, and all of the kind treatment that the Lord will allow. In these things we pray.
Oh, wow. Dr. Fowler, that was amazing. Amen. Hey, Dr. Fowler, we just got, do you have like a couple more minutes you want to spend on here? Because we just got our guest, Gene Laird. He came in, and let's see what Mr. Laird has to say.
Sure.
Mr. Laird, he's been in this for a fight. Laird, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Pretty good. I've been connecting a lot of dots lately.
All right.
Hi, Jane.
How you been?
Laird, you remember Dr. Fowler, right? Have you met?
Of
You
course
guys
I
have
do.
met,
Sure.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Hi.
It's good to see you again.
Hey, there she is, right there, Miss Beauty. Laird,
Yeah.
why don't we talk about a little bit about the child trafficking thing? We don't get a lot of chances to talk about that, but I think it's good to know, and it's good to show these people a little bit more about the sides of what's going on and what we can do to stop it, man. What do we got going on?
Well, I know I've just connected FEMA directly to the school boards.
Right? And the
As
schools
an,
where we're having the problems, right?
yes, a lot of your problems is schools. But here in Columbia, Missouri, we're also finding the school as the bank. Remember how they
Okay.
passed so many laws and everything else based upon children?
Right.
Well, that's
So
how
it's
they
all
passed lottery,
right.
everything else.
How is the school such a bad? Explain to everybody what, because they're not. I thought they're not supposed to have access to the school, are they?
Well, here's where the flaw comes in. The Department of Education is an education sector, which also all your teachers fall under the same sector.
Right.
So technically,
Uh-huh.
a lot of them can convert directly to a social worker, and you can work as your
Okay.
master's degree in social services.
So
These
they're
people,
putting them
well,
in there, involving them. They're just, and then now these kids are going to the teachers, and they're just talking to the teachers as if they're supposed to be under this, and now they're getting this inside information. Now they're going and they're immediately starting these things with the parents.
and plus
Is
you got
there?
Mm-hmm.
the thing, you got the nurse. You technically being the school should have been a safety point. You've got a
Right.
nurse, corporate supervisor, you've got a board, you got every bit of protection that should have been there for them children first and foremost.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of being there for the children, they're using it for their own causes.
Using it as a tool of investigation now.
Well,
That's
they're another feeder system like the hospitals and the children's clinics.
That's it right there. Well, my biggest thing is I keep finding a whole bunch of offices of children and family and government. Hold on. We created the government. It didn't create us.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you got offices of us in your system? That don't
right.
make sense. But if
Right.
the government,
They're supposed to be there. We're supposed to have control of them. We don't. We own. They are our employees. They're supposed to be helping us, not controlling us. And hey, can you explain? I know we don't have a lot of time, Laird. Maybe just like 2 or 3 more minutes. But I wanted to make sure we got you in here. Can you explain to everybody how CPS is not actually allowed? Well, it's a voluntary system. Can you explain to everybody how that is?
if you notice, it's a website. It's an organization. It's
Uh-huh.
not an authority. It's an
Uh-huh.
organization. They were meant to
Oh,
help people, not harm people.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's right behind most of it, right there. And your employment thing. We, the people, being the actual government, paid via taxes into the Treasury of the United States for disbursement to the President, U.S. Health and Human Services, which is public welfare, and violations of public welfare and creation of harm and damage to people. This is what's
Yep.
fun in CPS. But you got to
Right.
claim a public welfare situation to get their attention
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
for the
And how
violations.
do Right. And how do we go after? How is a way that we can go after their money source? What are some ways that we can do that?
Well, we've had no results from the Treasury, and I've been communicating for quite a while. So I've actually had to shift over to the Senate Financial Committee over top of the Treasury.
Okay.
That's the board. They control decisions of the Treasury. Senate seem to be the powerhouse financially, especially for control of our money. But our tax dollars all pulled together as one creates the president and everybody in contracting departments all to be our employees. That's where you got to find it. So that's why you go to the Treasury,
Okay.
and that's why they're
Now,
going to.
what can an individual do to go after these people and request damages?
Well, you can go to the Security Exchange Commission, and that's a big
Okay.
one. They 28-day complaint rule. Showed and damage by a contractor through the procurement offices, and those are 28 days to get your complaint in. You can go through the Treasury, IRS, complain as well. And you can also call your local county treasurer and state treasurer, request an investigation because these people are not filing billing services. Now, this is a service, remember, but
Right.
there's no billing occurring in the treasuries. Somebody's defrauded, and they're going to want to
Right.
know where that money is.
Well,
So, in other
that's
words,
the thing.
they never took the
Pardon
cue.
me, guys. Can we? This is very compelling. Pardon me for interrupting.
Yeah.
Gene, can we have you come back on the next show? Can we talk to you a little bit ahead of time? I'm a visual person. I think some of our viewers are. And maybe could we work out a visual? Because I think what you're saying is very potent and it needs to be captivated. Darren, if you agree, if we can have a whole
Yeah.
kind of
You
a
want to do
workshop
Wednesday night
on
with
this
us?
with, I'm sorry, love?
Yeah. Let's have them for Wednesday night.
Yes, with some visuals, Gene. If you can just give us maybe even something that could just even give just little tags or something so that we can see
I'll work
these
with
agencies and see how we can, push the button on them because what you're saying has a lot of power because it's these are action steps.
Yep,
Right. Which
that's
is what we're about. Correct.
Right. We're not here just to complain and cry and boo. I mean, we do want to share our grief, of course, but we
but
also want to leave with things that we can really do to retrieve our children. And also, guys, if you don't mind, one more interruption. Pardon me. I wanted to acknowledge Kenneth Alt. You guys can probably see that better than I can. I'd like to put St. Francis Ministries on blast. They are a third party contractor in Kansas, and they're abusing child and keeping parents of all classifications away from children.
All right.
Thank you so much for Kenneth.
We're gonna put them up on the wall of shame, Kenneth. We've got that on the website, so we'll make sure that we put St. Francis Ministries up there with courtesy of you, my man.
well,
Also, Kenneth, we'd like to invite you to call in or join us again on the next show on Wednesday because we would like to hear more about your experience and about this organization. If everybody else is, Darren, we're good with that?
Yeah, just go ahead and email us right for now at info@abolishcps.com and give us your information, Kenneth, if that's who you're directing it to. I've got Laird's stuff already, so we're good with him.
actually, the Department of Education sector gave us the information that the news is not reporting the individuals. We need to get the victims' reports out there.
All right. Well, let's get this done. Let's talk. Let's talk tomorrow, and me, you, and Dr. Fowler, and we'll get this all set up so that way we can. Because I understand what she's saying. Like, let's get this so people, because it's so big and so immersive, we got to get people to understand and do a step by step. Maybe I'll even come up with a point thing for you. But yeah, Laird, I'll talk to you after the show, Laird, and we'll get that all lined up. But thank you for coming on for this quick moment. We got you in here, buddy, and now you're here to stay. So we'll talk to you then, me and Dr. Fowler. We'll see everybody on Wednesday night. Again, info@abolishcps.com. Kenneth, please email us. And Dr. Fowler, do you have one more last word? Or are you good?
Just God bless everyone. Thank you all so much. See you Wednesday.
All right. Everybody, have a good night. We'll see you in 24 something hours. Till the next time, be safe, be good.
Hello,
Good
I want to
those
thank
others.
you for breaking the mold and coming to our site. This is where we start the process of taking back our children. They are our children, given to us by a choice made between two people in love and proof of a miracle. A child made from two people, a woman selfishly giving her body up for pains to bring that baby to our world. A father, the protector, is a strong individual whose job is to at all costs protect the children from evil and harm. The rules and purpose were established in the Bible. It was a miracle, and we are just